Hi guys, Squishy Bee here. I wanted to come on and do an update of what's been going on with me and kind of share my experience with COVID and the hospital experience here in New York. And just kind of so we can see what is happening in your area in comparison to mine, and if you're in the New York area, just to give you a heads up of what's going on in there. So first, I've obviously been away a long time, and I apologize for that, and I wanted to say I hope you guys are all doing well, and I hope you had a great Christmas and Happy New Year, all the stuff that I missed. There was a Thanksgiving in there I missed, and I wanted to just mention, that I had not only the health issues, but also my computer died, and I lost my computer program that I use for all of my video stuff. And I have since then been trying to find something else because they don't make that program anymore. And all of the ones that I've come across have been really complex for my brain that's damaged from the strokes. So I've been really struggling to learn a new program. And if you're hearing this, then possibly this new one that I got is working, at least for these purposes. So bear with me as I'm learning this whole new setup that I've got going on here. And so I started with having, kidney failure and a lot of complications from off of that. And then I thought I was not going to survive, honestly, another month or so at that point because I was so ill. And I was like, I'm going on a trip. I don't care if this is the last time I'm going to spend with my family. We're all going on a trip. So I took all of my family on a really big trip. My husband just pushed me in a wheelchair. I just had a lot of problems, a lot of health issues on this trip, but I was like, I'm going to make this happen, if it's the last thing I do, literally. And so we had a great time, although I did have a lot of problems with my health. But then when I got back, my doctors finally were like, okay, we're going to just take you off of all of your blood pressure medications, which was what was killing my kidneys most of the time to begin with. Even though I have chronic kidney disease, but having to be on so many blood pressure medications and such high doses to get my blood pressure down because of the autonomic dysfunction, it's so hard to get my blood pressure stable. That amount of medication was just giving me constant acute kidney injuries. And so he took me off of this stuff, but because of being off of that, then you get the huge raise in blood pressure, which, being that I've had strokes, is really bad for me. And then I got COVID. So on top of all of this, that is a miracle in itself that I survived that. So another reason why I wanted to share it was for you to be encouraged, because if I can survive this, all y'all can survive it. So let me just start with my experience from the beginning with that. For those of you who haven't had it, you might want to just kind of have an idea of how it went for someone with the kind of health issues that I have. So it started with my husband being at work, and he said that a lot of people at work had a cold, in quotes. And I always get a little bit nervous when I hear about people at his job getting sick, because you just never really know if that's truly what it is. They do all have to wear facial coverings, if you know what I mean, at all times. And they have not yet required the juice from everyone. They do encourage it, and a lot of the people did get it, a lot of the people didn't. So it's kind of split down the middle. My husband obviously did not. He is not going to at any point. So, that's fine with me. I also will not, as will most of my children, adult children. They are not getting it. I do have some family members that did, and it has been a very interesting change in our relationship, not because of me, but because they have gone along with this entire mindset of that we are dangerous to them, we're a threat to them, and so they have stopped wanting to be around us. So it made for a very interesting holiday season. However, all of my adult children and, my immediate family, they all came over for the holidays, and we had a great time. None of us have an issue with being around each other. We got through the holidays. We got through that whole trip together around all these crowds and had no problem. It wasn't until just, well after that trip, that in the holidays that my husband ended up getting it from work. So he came home and he started to get a little bit of the sniffles, and he was just kind of fatigued a bit. And then, but he still insisted, no, it's just that everybody had a cold. Nobody has come out and said that they have the virus. So he continued to go to work, and then within a day or two, I started just out of the blue getting a cough. Started right off the bat with a cough for me. And then it turned into a sore throat, and then it turned into like the worst, I don't know, you would say throat pain. It reminded me of croup. I don't know if you or your children have ever had croup, but it was a much more deep. It's in the windpipe. It's down lower that it was actually attacking at that point. And that was really painful. It was really painful to breathe. My chest hurt. And then it started going down lower, and I ended up where I was really struggling to breathe. The cough worsened. I got a bit of a fever, and my husband was just fine. The only thing that he had gone back to work, and he does a lot of really manual physical labor. He's lifting stuff all day long. And he found that a little bit difficult. He was just finding that his stamina was low. And that was pretty much it for him. Then he got better. He got over the sniffles really quick, and he had even gotten over the fatigue. He had no other issues. He didn't lose his taste, where I did. And then I just continued to get worse. And so we were like, okay, we have to get tested because this is more than a cold. And so his employer gave him the tests that everyone else was unable to get because they were always, as soon as they put them on the shelves, they were gone. And so they gave us the tests that are just for employees, and we took it and we both tested positive. And so then I called my doctor, made an appointment with my doctor, like a phone appointment, and they said I have to get the pulse oximetry machine. So we got that and started checking my oxygen levels, because that was the most important thing they said I had to do. And they called me in an inhaler, and that was pretty much it when I first started. And my pulse in the beginning, when I first started checking it, it was at like 88, maybe 88%, and it just went down and down and down. And the lady doctor that I had talked to on the phone said that I needed to come in and get that immunoglobulin IV, and she said that it can help, but it can also make it worse, and there are risks, and because I have kidney disease, that it's also can be dangerous for that, but she encouraged me to do it anyway. And so and she said also that if you wait to do this until your oxygen level drops too low, then it'll be too late and you can't do it. So I decided not to do it, mainly because I had to go to the hospital to do it. And my experience when I had that low sodium crisis was so terrible in the hospitals here that I was like, I don't I don't want to go back to the hospital unless I'm on my deathbed. So, and even then, probably I'd have to be unconscious and you'd have to force me to go, because I was on my deathbed for that low sodium thing, and I still wish I hadn't gone. It was a horrible experience. And so I chose not to go, and I got my levels dropped and dropped and dropped until at the point where I woke up and it was at 79%. And my husband's like, you're going to have to go in. You can't do this. And my family, my kids are all in the medical field. And so, of course, they were saying, no, you've got to go. I would be sending my patients in when they got below 90%. You can't be going around sitting at home with 79% oxygen level. So they talked me into going, and I decided this time, because last time with the sodium thing, I went to a bigger hospital here. And so this time I was like, well, maybe if I go to a smaller hospital, it won't be so bad. At least I wouldn't be competing with other things like, the shootings and stab victims and things, that normal stuff that you get in the bigger city hospitals. And so I tried to go to one of these other smaller hospitals. And first, when we got there, of course, they wouldn't let my husband stay. They made him drop me off and leave. So, which sucked, because I had been having a lot of seizures. That was one of the things that also was one of the reasons I went in, because I was having like 7 seizures in a row. And so I decided that, because you can stop breathing if you have too many seizures like that. And so that was another thing that went into my thought process of sucking it up and going into the hospital. So, but the fact that he couldn't stay there with me was a little bit concerning, because I would be sitting, I knew I was going to be sitting in that lobby forever by myself. And so sure enough, they made him leave, and they told me, for one, I went in with a mask on to begin with. They told me I had to put another one over top of that. And as it is, it was hard enough to breathe, but with 2 of them on, it was really hard, because I was already at such low oxygen, and they didn't give me any oxygen when I got there. I ended up having to go out and sit in the lobby forever. Then they finally brought me into what they call triage, where they talk to you about what you're there for. And when I got in there, instead of really asking me, my symptoms and how I was doing, the very first thing they did was this Spanish Inquisition on why I hadn't gotten the juice. Okay. And then they lectured me on how it's all my fault, and that there's 44 other people in there right now in that waiting room with the same virus, and that none of them have gotten the juice, and that it's our fault for society breaking down, and blah, 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 and the nurses are such a shortage because of us, and all this stuff. And still did not give me no tests, no oxygen, nothing. They sent me back out in the waiting room to wait again for hours and hours and hours. And I ended up having a really big seizure in the waiting room. Nobody came to help me. I couldn't take my regular medication, which was part of why I'm sure I had that seizure, because I couldn't take my seizure pill. And then I finally was like, I was not able to even barely walk, and I had to stumble up there and say, I really need to take my medication. My seizure medication. And so they allowed me to do that, but I had to go away from all of the other people and take off my mask to take a drink and to take my medication. And so I really had a struggle to get over to the door, to get out, to be able to do that away from people. And by the way, everyone was put right next to each other, and people were coming in that did not have what I had, and were very vulnerable elderly people with other problems, and they were putting us all right on top of each other out there. Nobody was separated, and so of course those people are at risk of catching it. So I was telling people when they would come in and sit next to me, it was really embarrassing, but I had to warn them that that's what I had. I was really concerned. I was trying so hard not to cough. Everybody else in there was coughing, though. It's like, it sounded like a horrible situation of everyone in this one place had the same thing. But then these few scattered people that didn't have it were stuck in there breathing all that in. And so I felt terrible. And so I warned anybody that sat next to me that I had it, but that also all these other people have it. So you should kind of try to find your own little corner here if you can and get away from people as much as possible. And so anyway, they still never took me in hours and hours and hours, never would give me my medications or anything. I wasn't getting any oxygen, and I was really worse because of not, having to wear this double mask thing while I was already so short of breath. And so I finally just called my husband, and I was like, why don't you just come back and get me? Because I'm not getting anywhere here, but worse, because I'm not getting my regular medications. My breathing is just getting worse the way that they have this set up. And so he's like, I agree. I'm just going to come back and get you. And he starts to head back to get me, and doesn't he get in a car accident? Unbelievable. So he gets in an accident, and so I felt horrible because it's my fault because I made him come back and get me, and that he gets in this accident. And so he ended up where he really hurt his stomach from the seatbelt, but nothing too significant. But still, I was like, you need to come get checked out, because if his stomach was hurting that badly, that it might be some sort of internal injury, So I had to talk him into doing that. So he came into the same hospital, and of course, because he also was positive, right? They treated him terribly when he came in. Everyone there that was the staff just did not want to be around anyone that had this virus. They made that very clear. They had like a real attitude of anger towards people that had this. And so they barely even looked at him. They didn't do any scans or anything to find out if he was bleeding internally or anything. They just told him, oh, you're okay and you can leave. So he ended up having to call like a tow truck to tow the vehicle it was totaled. And he had to call and get a rental car and everything. So he was doing all of that. And while he was doing this, they finally admitted me to a room because I had said I was going to leave. And they were like, no, you can't leave. We're getting you in here in a minute. So they got me in, and they started running tests and things. They did lab work, and they did a chest x-ray and stuff, and still no oxygen, not until I got all of these tests back, okay, which is mind-blowing to me because they could see my oxygen level. They did have that on, and they knew what my oxygen level was. And so it turns out that, I don't know if you're going to be familiar with this, but my D-dimer was elevated, which told them that I had blood clots somewhere, and because I had been having stroke symptoms, where I wasn't talking right on the one side. My left side of my face was not, it was paralyzed, not working right, off and on. They said that I was having like little ischemic strokes from these blood clots, and that I needed to get the shots of blood thinner in my stomach. So they said I had to stay and do that, and the chest x-ray showed that I had pneumonia from the virus on the left lower side of my lung. And so they said I needed to stay and get antibiotics through the IV and get these shots of blood thinners. And they wanted me to get this other medication, I can't think of the name of it, through an IV that was some other type of antiviral. And the guy said, there are some risks to it, but you need to get this done, and you need to get it done right away. And I was like, well, can I at least talk to my kidney doctor, because everything goes through your kidneys, and he's already he took me off of everything because, I was so vulnerable to kidney failure that, I really should make sure that this is okay. Plus, I'm allergic to pretty much every antibiotic. And so I wanted to make sure that I was not being given something I was allergic to, and that I was taking something that was not going to, put me into instant kidney failure. So he was like, no, you got to make up your mind right now. So give me like 5 seconds. I didn't have time to call anybody or look anything up or do anything. And so I just had to make up my mind, and I was like, all right, just give me the stuff. All right, I'll just take my chances. And so first, by the way, that doctor also had to give me the Spanish Inquisition and the lecture on the juice also, before he even looked into any of my tests or did anything. That was the priority. And I got that from every single nurse that came in there. And so that guy left, and then the nurses just came in, and they did not want to be in that room, and they made it very clear how they did not want, they wouldn't even speak to me. They would ignore any greeting or any niceties. They just came in, like, one lady came in and pushed something through my IV, like a big tube of stuff, and didn't tell me what it was. Nothing. I had no idea. They came in and gave me the shots in my stomach multiple times. They drew blood, and didn't give me any IV fluids. And that was going to be an issue, I knew, because I have terrible veins. And I was so dehydrated. I'm always dehydrated because I'm on so much Lasix for heart failure. So they didn't give me any of that. And of course then they couldn't draw any blood because my veins were just not there because I was so, dehydrated. And I already have bad veins from scar tissue and everything from years of IV treatments and labs and stuff like that. So they ended up where they stopped being able to get blood after the first time, and then they just never came in and tried again, which I thought was odd. And they never gave me IV fluids, which I also thought was odd, because had they done that, they'd be able to get the labs. So anyway, then I just kept asking every time they would come in, is there a plan to give me the stuff that he told me I absolutely had to have, this antiviral? And she just kept saying, oh, well, the doctor will have, I'll have to mention it to the doctor. I don't know. And so they kept saying that over and over and over again for days. And then, and they also were not giving me still my normal medications. I had to fight to get these medications, like seizure pills, important stuff that I have to be on. And then the lady pitched a fit that I had to be on a schedule. I'm on a very strict schedule for my medications on top of it for a reason, because of this autonomic dysfunction thing. If I don't take them at the right time, I drop in blood pressure suddenly, very easily at night. And so I can't take the stuff too close to bedtime. I don't know. It's a long, complicated thing. Anyways, she didn't want to do it because she didn't want to come in the room more than she had to. And so then another thing is, like, the tech. I had a really nice tech, and he came in, and I would never ask for anything. I know that these nurses are overworked and that they're short-staffed and everything. And I've kids that are all in the medical field, including a daughter that's a charge nurse, so I know what it's like. And so I would save up any requests until they were in there. But I was so thirsty. And so when the tech came in and asked me if I wanted anything, I asked for a drink. And so he's like, oh, of course I can get you a drink. This stuff makes you really dehydrated and everything, and all the medication that you're on. And so he understood, and he went out, and when he came back with that drink, I could hear the nurse flip out on him outside my door saying, you can't be going in there with a drink for her. You save up everything for to go in all at once. You don't go in until you have several things to do. I don't want you going in there in between and exposing yourself. And so she wouldn't let him bring me a drink. So I had to wait until they had to do all different things. But I had already waited until he came in to begin with to do my vitals and stuff, to ask for it. And so now I'd have to wait until hours later for them to come back in to do the next set of vitals. So Anyway, that's the way that this went. So I really just wanted to leave. I was not getting the medication that they insisted I had to have. And so that was the whole point of me coming in there. They were giving me stuff I didn't even know what it was. So I was afraid I was going to have like an allergic reaction. And so they ran some other tests, and then days went by, and then finally another doctor comes in, a totally different doctor, and he says, how are you feeling? And I was like, terrible. And he was like, oh, well, you need to change your wordage. You can't be just saying that you feel terrible. Do you have any idea how many patients are dying of this and how much worse it could be for you? And I was like, well, I guess I must feel great then. And he was like, well, I didn't say you feel great. It just was just aggressive and had such a negative tone from the beginning. And then he was like, what is going on with your lab work? Because it says here you were refusing to have lab work. And I said, I absolutely was not refusing anything. They just never came in and tried it. It was difficult for them the first time, and so then they just gave up and never came back. And he was like, oh, I see now that you're right, that they wrote it down the wrong way, but in actuality, they didn't actually try it. But just let that roll off your back and don't get upset. And so like, okay, what is the plan here? Because nobody ever gave me this antiviral. And he was like, oh, it's too late to give you that now. Because we thought you were refusing it. Nobody gave it to you. I was like, I didn't refuse it. That was the whole reason why I stayed. And I asked for it repeatedly. And he's like, well, it's too late now, so you're not going to be able to do it. It had to be done within a certain period of time. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So we can't do that. And I was like, why don't you just send me home then? Because you're not really giving me any of the stuff. And just give me antibiotics to go. Give me a prescription and send me home. And maybe you can do the oxygen from home. And he was like, well, we can do that. I don't prefer to do that, but we could do that. But it's going to take like probably 24 hours before you get the oxygen set up. It doesn't happen that quickly. And I was like, well, I'll just suck it up for a day and just go home without it, and just by tomorrow I'll get it and I'll be fine. And he was like, okay, then that's fine, but you're going to have to sign the paperwork that says you're leaving against medical advice. And he was like, but don't let that bother you. It just means we had a disagreement. And so I was like, fine, whatever. My husband was in an accident. I really want to get home to him. And I'm not getting really any help here. I feel worse here more stressed out than if I was home. And he's like, that's true. People do better from home anyways. And so it sounded like he was agreeing with me, but still making me sign the against medical advice. It made no sense at all. And so he left, and the nurse came in with the paperwork, and she was like, I just want to make sure you understand that you're not going to be leaving with oxygen if you do this. And as soon as we take this off, your oxygen level drops down to like 84. And so they tried that, and it did drop down. And so I was like, that's fine as long as you're setting it up for me to get it by tomorrow. And she was like, all right, but, just know that you're going to have to go. That 24 hours is a long time to go with your oxygen like this. And I had already gone like that for quite some time before even coming in. So I was like, I'll just do it. And so then she wouldn't come back. My husband was waiting because he had come back and was waiting out in the loop, and he wasn't feeling good. So I didn't want to leave him sitting down there for hours. So I was like, can you just, is somebody going to take me like in a wheelchair to the loop, because I'm so winded just walking across this room. And she just left and never came back. And so I finally just left. I just walked myself down there, and which was a nightmare. Of me gasping for air trying to walk that far when I couldn't breathe. And so I got down to the loop. My husband picked me up. We got started to leave, and the phone rang, and it was that doctor. And so we pulled into a parking space just, to see what he was saying. And he said, well, I just want you to know that because you left, I can't prescribe you oxygen or antibiotics. I was like, what are you talking about? You told me that you could. It would just take a day. And he was like, no, because you've left, you're no longer my patient. So I can't I can't give you anything. You'll have to talk to your regular doctor. He's going to have to give it to you. And so I called my regular doctor, and they were like, he can't give you anything. It needed to be the doctor at the hospital. He was supposed to send you with these things, and then we would continue it once you got home. And it was like, well, he's not going to do that. He refuses to do that. And she was like, well, then you're going to have to make an appointment and come in person to do that. And you can't do that until next week. We can't see you for a week. And for one, because they didn't want me to come in until my quarantine was over. So I was like, so I got to go a week with no oxygen and no antibiotics. Isn't the pneumonia going to get worse? And she's like, well, there's nothing we can do. So I went home, and it was the week from hell. It was horrible being home with my oxygen level being that low and not having any oxygen. And it was starting, by the time my appointment came around, just about the day before my appointment, I was starting to get better. My oxygen level was going up. And so I was like, well, it's almost like, what's the point of going in? He should have given me the stuff just to get me through this past week. But now I don't see the point. But I went in anyway. And for one, I was past my quarantine. And they still, when I got there, they stopped me and wouldn't let me come in the office. They were like, we're going to do the appointment in your car from the parking lot because we don't want to catch what you have. And I was like, but I'm past my quarantine. That's the whole point of why I waited to this day. And she's like, it doesn't matter. We're going to do it from there. So he comes out. It was freezing out, by the way. And he comes out to the car, and it's so windy and cold. And he's trying to listen with the stethoscope to my breathing. And he's like, it sounds like it's clear now. And your oxygen level is better. He's like, I can still send you home with oxygen, but just know that it's addictive. And since you're starting to get better, you don't want to get where you're dependent on it. So I'll leave it up to you. And he was like, I can give you antibiotics, but it seems like you're getting better anyway. So we might as well just not give you that because that will just go through your kidney and damage your kidney unnecessarily. So he didn't give me antibiotics. And he was like, I should probably give you the blood thinners. I'm sure you need that. But that's going to also damage your kidneys because everything gets filtered through the kidneys. And so he's like, I'll leave it up to you. And I was like, and this is leaving this choice of, do you want to have a stroke or do you want to die of kidney failure? And this has been my life. This is what always happens. It's my choice of stroke or heart attack from the blood pressure or kidney failure. And or other medications that I need for other things. I have to either choose to have those things get worse or the kidney failure. So I chose not to take the blood thinners. So I went home and I thought I was getting better for a day or two, but then all of a sudden I started getting worse. The cough came back. My oxygen level started dropping and dropping and dropping. And so I told the doctor and he said, all right, I'm sending you for a chest x-ray. And so I go for a chest x-ray and he calls me right back and he's like, your x-ray looks horrible. You're, even though the virus is gone and you test, by the way, I tested negative at the point because my husband had to be tested negative before he could go back to work. So he also tested negative and went back to work at that point. And, so you thought it was over it, and then he's like, but what's going on is it's lowered your immune system and now you've picked up pneumonia and it's in both lungs, all over both lungs. There was like what they call broken glass and nodules all over my lungs. And so he said, you have to go on antibiotics. So he called me in those and then redo your x-ray in 6 weeks. So I went through the antibiotics and slowly, it did start to work. I still get short of breath when I'm up and about doing stuff, but I just had another x-ray and it is getting better. So finally, but again, I'm still quite short of breath. I'm still having this other problem that they can't figure out with this pain in my head every time I cough or bend over, anything that puts pressure on my head, I'm getting this horrible sharp pain in the right side of my head. And they thought it was an aneurysm, so they took, I had to have another brain scan, and they said it wasn't that, but that if it wasn't, it's probably this stupid trigeminal neuralgia thing starting up on the other side. I had brain surgery on the left side for that to fix it, where they put a metal plate in between the artery and the nerve. And what we're thinking might be happening is because my blood pressure is so high that it's inflamed the nerve on the other side. And so now I've got to go back to the brain surgery department, because the brain surgeon that did the other one that I liked so much, he was great. Of course, he left the state. Every good doctor leaves New York, because New York overcharges so badly in taxes and malpractice and stuff on these doctors that any good doctor leaves. So we're stuck with all the leftover garbage. And so that office has gone downhill since that guy left. And so I don't know what's going to happen. I got to call and schedule that. So anyway, that has been my experience basically up to this point. I still don't have my taste. I don't know how long that's going to last. But in addition, everyone that I know pretty much is getting this right now. I don't know what strain this was. They did test me at, the other test that goes up your nose. They did that at the hospital, and it tested a positive, but they don't tell you what strain it is. I don't know if there's a way to find that out. I'd really like to know. But they did tell me, like the people called from that contact tracing called me every day. And I was hoping, they seem to know an awful lot about us, but they didn't say anything about that. But I would really love to know if it was the Delta or if it was Omicron or what. But it seemed way too severe to be Omicron. It's going to be really discouraging if it was Omicron, because I was getting the impression that that was a much milder version of this, and that 95% or so, I don't know, a high percentage in the 90s of the cases that are showing up now are Omicron, and that the Delta is getting kind of squeezed out. So I don't know, because when I did get this, it was before this Omicron seemed to be hitting here. So I might have gotten the Delta that was just at the end of it, before the Omicron started spreading. But in any case, a lot of people that I've talked to, and they were all people that were not exposed to me. I did not spread this to anybody else because I hadn't left my house. My husband works a lot of hours, and I've been here and dealing with other health issues and not really been going out. I can't drive because of seizures, so when he's not here, I don't really go anywhere. So, but other people separately that were not anywhere near me, they were getting it themselves from their jobs and what have you. And so it seems to be quite rampant in our area. I don't know about you guys and where you live, but I'm curious to know. I have a lot of stuff that I'd really like to go over on some of the other upcoming things that seem to be popping up. Some of the things that I had warned people about because of all of the predictive programming on hemorrhagic stuff, and that is now popping up in China. So I'm very interested in what's going on there, and I'm going to keep an eye on that. And I'd really like to do a video on that and kind of monitor that situation and a lot of other things. I got to get this program thing figured out because it's really complex, and because I was already having problems because of the last strokes, but now I just had a bunch of new little strokes during this whole episode with COVID, because COVID also causes blood clots. And so being that I was already at risk for that because I wasn't on blood thinners anymore from the last stroke because of the kidney thing. So I chose not to be on those. And I'm also, my cholesterol is super crazy high, and I'm not on the medication I need to be for that, because that has all these different side effects, and it's bad if you have kidney disease. So that's also bad for me to be having such high cholesterol and not be on anything for that. It seems like there's a lot of things that are kind of risk factors for me for strokes. Oh, also, I want to mention that they did give me zinc and vitamin D, which I was kind of surprised that they were doing this alternative natural measures in the hospitals here. So I did end up taking that. But be warned, I don't know if this is affected me more because I have ulcers and stuff, but zinc was causing a lot of stomach stuff. Like, that was another symptom that I didn't mention, but I just was constantly feeling like I was going to throw up. And I didn't want to eat anything. So I was really sick to my stomach, and I had terrible, like heartburn and stuff. And people get all kinds of different intestinal problems and stuff. I didn't have that. It was more like an upper stomach thing, just nauseousness. And then to take the zinc, I didn't find this out until after I went in to see my doctor later, that causes a lot of stomach problems. But from what I understand, it's good to be on that regularly, because I think it helps to beef up your immunity against this. So if you do get it, you've got a head start in fighting it. And I swear everybody is low in vitamin D. And it's because of the sun being blocked out. I'm sure that that's a big part of it, that we're not absorbing the sun like we're supposed to. So everyone should probably get checked for that, because everyone I know has vitamin D levels that are like absurdly low, like 9. Okay. That was what mine was. And all of my kids, same thing. They all had levels under 10. So I would check on that, and then make sure that you don't need to get loaded with that 50,000 units of vitamin D to get yourself back up to an acceptable level, and then take a regular vitamin D gummy type of thing every day. Because if you do have such a low amount, you can't just take the normal over-the-counter vitamin D levels and get back up to normal. You have to get a prescribed thing, which they call loading. And for me, mine kept going back down, even though I had that loading thing. It keeps going back down because they think I'm not absorbing vitamin D. So some people also do have that issue where they have to take something else to help their body to absorb the vitamin D. So that's another whole thing. So it's really good to educate yourself on what you can personally do yourself, rather than just depending on the medical field to do stuff after the fact. And that's one of the things that I'm determined to do. Now that I'm over all of this stuff and we've got the holidays out of the way, I very much want to get onto a proper diet, get back to exercising and doing things that I can strengthen myself and try to help my own health the best I can. And I may keep you posted on that. I might even take you with me on this weight loss journey. I really want to take off some of the weight that I put on during this whole past couple of years of dealing with all of these medications that make me gain weight, and all this fluid gain from the congestive heart failure and the kidney disease and everything. There's a lot of stuff that I want to do, but one of the things that is the most important thing that I'm going to try this time is to bring God in on my weight loss journey, because I think that is the one thing that I was leaving out. I mean, I used to be a personal trainer and used to train other people in weight loss and everything. And I just now feel like that is the most important thing. And it's free, to bring God in on your plans, because nobody can help you with weight loss and health more than God. And all we have to do is just ask. And that's something that I forget to do. I'm always praying for other people, and I very rarely pray for myself. But this time, I think this is different. I think when it comes to taking on something like weight loss, I think that it's not like, just God, can you help me get through this crisis of a current health issue? It's bringing him onto a challenge that you have to do yourself and put the work in yourself. And that's something that I really have kind of slacked off on in the last couple of years. Because when you feel like you're going to die anytime, it almost puts you in a mindset of, what's the point? What is the point? And when you're waiting for the rapture any minute, I think a lot of us also get into the mindset of, well, there's no point in putting all the effort into this and that. We're going to get raptured out and get new bodies anytime soon. So why do I need to even work on getting this body into shape? I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But that was one of the things that I feel like I had going through my mind. Because it just seemed like one hopeless health issue after another that just seemed like, well, my doctors are telling me there's no way to fix this and there's no way to fix that. And when they did have a fix for this one, it would make that one worse. It was just one of those things that's like, I just can't win with treating so many different health issues. But maybe that's what the whole point was, is that God wanted me to get to a position where I couldn't do it myself. And the doctors couldn't do it. It had to be a point where I brought God into the picture and was like, okay, I need your help. This is more than what I can do. And God can do anything. So I'm going to bring him in. I feel like I've been given a second chance, not only with the kidney disease, because my kidneys have improved being off of this blood pressure medication, even though my blood pressure is super high. The immediate, I'm going to die any day thing from the kidney failure and the heart failure is improved, at least right now. So, and then to be having overcome this hurdle of COVID and get better from it just seems to have increased my faith all the more. And that's why I wanted to share this with you guys, because I want to also use it to increase your faith, and to help anyone who might be, not only that you might be going through this specific virus, but so many other different health issues out there. There's so many people that are struggling with cancer and all kinds of autoimmune diseases and all kinds of stuff out there, and chronic pain and chronic fatigue and stuff that it just whittles you down. And you know how the Bible does say that Satan will wear out the saints in the last days. And aren't we being weared out? I'm definitely feeling a bit, I was getting to a point where I was really beaten down and defeated. And, but now I feel like I've been given this whole new renewed energy to, to get back on the horse and try again. And, my faith has just been that much more increased from being brought through this to the other side, when I thought for sure that I was done for, because my immune system was so bad. To be able to, they had told me while I was in the hospital that I was beginning the acute respiratory distress syndrome, whatever that terrible cytokine storm thing that they talk about, where you get you just go down and then you end up on a ventilator and everything. And I didn't. I did get really bad, but I fought through it. And I think that that's because God has plans. He has plans for each of us. And when we're given this second chance, I don't want to waste it. I want to get out there and get doing things and occupy the time as we wait for the return of Jesus. Because it's really easy to just sit back and say, well, it's coming any day. Every day we see these signs. And he's going to be here any day, so we might as well just chill and wait, right? But we're not supposed to really do that. We don't really know for sure the time. Yes, he's coming soon, but really we should look at every day that he's not here as one more day to save somebody else from hell. It's one more day that we can get through to somebody who may not have heard the gospel, or may have heard it and just wasn't at the right time in their life. Try again. It gives us another chance that when we do get raptured and we're standing in heaven, that there might be people there that wouldn't have been there if it weren't for you, because you gave that one more chance of talking to them, or you left one more gospel tract somewhere out and about that somebody found, and that was the ones, they were just looking for a sign that one day, and that was what they needed. That was the sign, because perhaps several other people had spoken to them that last couple of weeks, and they weren't listening when the first person talked to them, maybe not the second or third even, but a slew of different people that God sent in their path. It adds up. And then for them to maybe be just on the fence, and then they just happen to find your gospel tract. And that was what they needed. So don't ever think that, what can I do? Just one person in all this mess. Because you are just as important as any other part of the big puzzle, okay? Every one of us is another small part of the big body of Christ, and each part works together in one body. So we need to all do our little part, even if it's a tiny thing. Maybe a little thing today, but maybe God will send some other bigger thing to you on another day. You never know what he's going to send in your path. So I would just keep looking for his return, but at the same time, keep looking for what you can do now while you wait. So anyways, I know this is a really long video, but I wanted to give you just an idea of what went on, why I've been away, and to just give you some encouragement that you can get through anything. Okay, if I can do it, you can do it, because I am a whiny, weakling, and I've known nothing but pain my whole life, and so you get burned out after a while. And so I was getting to a point where I was like, I don't want to deal anymore. I've had enough of this health stuff. I'm just going to ignore it and hope it goes away. And I was kind of getting to that point. And this way, I kind of like escaped away to a trip and went on this big trip, despite the fact that I was in terrible shape. My husband had to push me in a wheelchair, and for part of the time, I would go as much as I could, and then I would have to sit in this wheelchair because I just didn't have the strength, because my kidneys were working at like 15%, and I hadn't gone on dialysis or anything because I was at that in-between stage, and where I had to, we had to decide, do we want to get off of the medication that's causing this and take a chance of having another stroke? And one of these times, it could be a really big stroke, and I might not survive it. So far I've been fortunate that's been all these like little ischemic strokes, but or a heart attack. So it was big decisions, and I was like, I'm going to spend this time with my family, and I'm going to share some of my, I'm going to do another video sharing some of this trip with you guys, just because, some of you may not have the opportunity to get out, and so I wanted to take pictures and some video and show you what a blessing and how good God has been to me that I was able to go on this really big, long trip and cover so many places that we went, that I was, just so blessed. And it just kind of, I think God knew I needed some sort of renewal to be able to keep going. And that's exactly what it did. It kind of renewed me and helped me to think about, I don't want this to be a last family vacation. I want to have more vacations. I want to do more with my family. And so it kind of gave me some more fight to keep going. And so I was like, okay, let's take on more tests. Let's take on more, whatever it takes to get better. And so I came back and I was like, okay, let's do what we got to do here. And so I'm on my way to recovery now, and I'm hoping to have more vacations and hopefully be able to reach a lot more people on this trip. I was able to put gospel tracts all up and down from here to Florida and back, and Tennessee, and I had those painted rocks with the gospel message and stuff on it that I left at all these different rest stops and stuff between here and there because we drove, and it gave me more opportunity to stop and put these things around. And one of the things I was so excited about was that I had made all these cards from J.D. Farag's website that gave the ABCs of salvation on it and gave his website for people to go to, because I obviously am not a preacher, and I wanted to be able to point them to somebody else that could take them from being a baby Christian to growing. And so I was able to put all of these cards with his information on it all over several states. And so that to me was worth more than anything with this trip. And so I look forward to other trips where I can do that as well. And maybe I'll kind of take you with me on these journeys as I am able to get where I can do that. Maybe when the weather gets a little bit better and I can get a little bit stronger after this last virus episode. But anyways, I'm glad to be back. I hope you guys are doing great, and I've been praying for you and will continue to pray for you. I hope that God blesses you and that you have a very happy, healthy new year. I think I've got the hang of this video program, actually. So that's good news. I think I will be able to get this uploaded, I'm hoping, and I'll be able to get another one done real soon. Until next time, guys, I'll be seeing ya. Bye-bye.